Hello and welcome. This is Grant Hughes of Grant Hughes Investigates on YouTube. This channel evaluates all aspects of true crime. As you are aware, videos and live streams in this genre often discuss elements of crime that may be disturbing to some viewers. If necessary, take the precautions needed to avoid these feelings. Factual information related to cases is the key to fostering rational true crime discussions. Fortunately, you will find that here. Please hit the like button only once, share the video, and subscribe if you like my content. Thank you very much for watching.
Huh?
We were all Richard Allen!
You pieces of shit got to the jury, didn't you?
Stupid is being nice. You're an absolute moron.
That was pretty good. I like that.
Oh, Richard Allen! We're all Brian Kohberger! Oh my god! We could all be Brian Kohberger. You know, because he's being treated so unfairly, we could all be him. If it could happen to him, it could happen to anybody. You get it, you guys? Man, I mean, Brian Kohberger's being treated so meanly.
Come on, you guys. Come on. How's it going? People want me to start the show like this. They want me to go like this. Watch this. This is how they want the show to be. Let me show you how they want the show to start. Watch. Well, hold on. Let me try that again. They want to start like this. I guess I'd be on like a page like that or something, right? And then it'd be... Do you solemnly swear to affirm the testimony you're about to give now before the court is the truth and... Oh, wait. Like that, just no talking at all. Don't wait around. I mean, get to it, Gray. Good. Alright, well, you guys, guess what? Tonight's another night. You know, so during this show... You know, if you're out there and you want to help support the channel, we got the coffees you can buy. You got the super chats. You have you know, buy memberships. It'd be cool if we had a night where we just bought like 100 memberships or something. That'd be pretty sweet. But yeah, this channel relies on you guys during the live streams. All right. So, anyways. Yesterday we went over the couple different stories in this one. There isn't really any updates on the other two that we were looking at. I was looking at these 1986 cold cases that we normally look at, stuff like that over here. I'm going to, if there's time at the end, look at one of them. I think they might be connected, actually. Right in the same spot. There's even an article that sort of thought maybe they were, but I mean, it's kind of weird. I actually think that they have the wrong... They associated like an 8-year-old's death with a 29-year-old's death, and the person who was arrested for the 8-year-old's death was into, like, that's what he was into. But they also think that maybe he killed the girl because 29 because she was found within, you know, like 100 yards or something from the same spot within a certain, you know, like within 8 days or 10 days of each other. The only thing is there's another girl from 10 months prior that was also found in a canal that looks similar and everything. So, you know, I think that one's more connected, and I think that one's a different killer than the young person one. I mean, it's pretty crazy. There's like the whole story's out there. I was just kind of digging around, looking at it, just going, whoa, this is nuts. Yeah, well, if you send a super chat in, JD Wells, I won't whistle anymore, because we're still at 0 for this show. How do you like that? And also during the show, if you send in, you have something you want to say, I'll stop the reading and read your comment about whatever we're talking about at the time. Could be, you could ask a question or anything. That's what they're for. At what? Are you still mad? At what? Help me, Rhonda. I don't even know who you are. Who are you? Man, keep an eye on that Help Me Rhonda person. I think they might be a troll. I gotta be honest. Every day it's the same. Just hey, all right, look at that. KME gifted a membership to Joyous Ruckus. Awesome. So yesterday, it was unfortunate that the prosecution objected to the line of questioning by Ann Taylor, because we were going to get to hear a lot of different things by Dylan Mortensen and other things like that, even though in my mind I was thinking, man, this isn't related at all to the IGG stuff that they were supposed to be having a hearing about. And then that sort of shortened everything up. So Detective Payne is just getting off of the stand here. And when I'm reading this, you'll just have to know by context. I'm not going to keep saying Miss Taylor said this, the court said this, unless it's like the judge is interjecting something. I'll let you know that that's who that is. All right. Cool. So we are at the so defense can call its next witness, and then Ann Taylor said, I'm sorry. The court said, you can call your next witness. Hey, thanks, Ocean 42 AOL. And my father's alibi. Yeah, I even emailed my father's alibi. What do you think of that? I even sent the email off. I was saying that I'm working on a video. I wanted to sort of put make him a little bit like, ooh, oh shit, we better get going here, I think it probably made a difference. I mean, when you get that many emails, it probably does that. So it's Ocean. I'll just put Ocean 42. I don't know if that's the actual name of the person, but I mean, I'm sure they weren't born that way. All right, let's see. All right, let me get to the. Wow, thanks, wise child. Very kind, very kind. Let's see. Let's put that on there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. See, I'm doing the spin for the notebook now. I'm getting back into the groove of, like, you just pause for a second and put them all in there. It's no big deal. Oh, good. I was able to turn on just to hear the end of it. Ah!
Thanks, Grant, for all you do.
That felt good to hear just a little bit of that. Thank you. I'll leave that on. All right, so it says, the clerk said, do you solemnly swear to affirm the testimony you're about to give? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and then they're sworn in, and then Ann Taylor says, good morning. Good morning. Will you please state your name for the record? Rylene Nolan. I think you've done this before. Well, a few times. How are you employed? I'm employed as a forensic laboratory manager with the Idaho State Police Forensic Services Laboratory in Meridian, Idaho. How long have you worked for Idaho State Police? I'm going to skip through that kind of stuff. I'm not interested in it. Let's see. Yeah, I'm a member of this. She's trying to like bolster their credibility. I don't care. Let's see. I just want to get to the case related stuff. Forensic Investigative Genetic Genealogy. Okay, I'll try to remember. That's the one I want to talk about today. So your group is talking about best practices. Okay, so that's what this is about. Best practices in forensic investigative genetic genealogy. Is that right? That's one of the areas of focus, correct. Are you doing that because there are practices that are important in that discipline? We are doing that because it's a new technology. New technology. You want me to zoom in a little bit more? I can do about like that. Is that for people that can't see very well? Is that better? I can even do one more, I think. Like there. Oh, look at that, man. That's let's see. We are doing that because it's a new technology coming into forensic world, and not every laboratory manager has a background in DNA. We also have a group of firearms because not every laboratory manager has a background on firearms, and it's just a resource for those managers as they're looking to implement new technologies. You mentioned best practices. Does that have anything to do with things that might refer to as standards or procedures or protocols? No. What does best practices mean? She was hoping she'd say yes because, best practices is a recommendation based on the current knowledge in the field. There are organizations that come up with standards for different fields, but this group, that is not their purpose. In your lab, do you have standards and procedures and protocols? Our laboratory does have. We call them analytical methods as well as our quality system. Analytical methods and quality systems means the same thing as procedures and protocols. Yes, what does that mean to you? What that means to me, our laboratory is an accredited laboratory, so we have a set of accreditations, Jesus, standards that we must meet. In order to do that, we have set quality policies as well as the analytical methods for each discipline. That ensures that we are consistently performing our scientific analysis in a way that has been validated and shown to be proper for the testing that's being conducted. And it also shows that we are meeting the national standard by which we are accredited. In addition, DNA has additional standards that they must meet called FBI Quality Assurance Standards for forensic casework laboratories as well as forensic database laboratories. I want to start, and this is Ann Taylor again. Yeah, Brent Kopacka has nothing to do with it. Okay, quit talking. I'm going to ban the word Brent Kopacka. It's absolutely nothing to do with the case whatsoever, and irrelevant. And we're not talking about that right now. You have plenty of channels where you can go sell your bullshit to on a nightly basis, including the Clown and a guy from the UK. They love that shit. Okay, I want to start with the first part of it. You mentioned, I think, that there's standards and protocols. My definition of them. That helps assure your work so that somebody could look and see what you did and maybe get the same results or understand what you did. That makes sense, right? I mean, do I understand that right? Yes, it's the methods we follow, and yes, that would be one application. Someone could look and see what we did. Now, you mentioned at the very end of what you told me before, DNA has something separate. Correct. What do you mean by that? Because our laboratory is a participant in the National DNA Index System. It's commonly referred to as CODIS, which stands for Combined DNA Index System. We are subject to additional standards set forth by the FBI because they manage that database. What are those standards? Those standards are known as the QAS standards. They cover everything from when I listed the classes I had at the beginning. They decided what classes a DNA analyst coming in should have, what education a DNA technical leader should have, what things need to be included in a validation study, how facilities need to be controlled. It covers the gamut of testing. And by the way, you guys, whenever I do this reading, you guys have seen it over time, where the support for the channel drops off the face of the cliff. So just remember, while we're doing this, it's the same thing. This is just a document that we need to go over because it was something that was outside of the public viewing, and now it's available to go over it, a transcript. Validation study, what does that mean? Whenever a new chemistry, a new instrument, a new procedure is coming online in the laboratory, we perform a study to ensure that the chemistry, instrument, or procedure is working or receiving the expected results. Okay, and to be sure, you have to do that because you use CODIS. Our DNA section has to do that because we use CODIS. The rest of the laboratory, because of part of our accreditation standards. Tell me what CODIS is briefly. CODIS, Combined DNA Index System, is essentially a national DNA database. It exists on 3 levels. There's a local level, your county sheriff's office, local PDs. There's a state level, which is typically the state laboratory. It is limited to public laboratories, and then the national level. In Idaho, the Idaho State Police Forensic Service Lab in Meridian is the only DNA lab in the state, so there are no local labs in the state of Idaho. And the database contains different indices. There's a forensic index. Those are profiled, obtained from items of evidence. There's an offender index. Those are samples from those convicted of qualifying offenses in your state as determined by your state legislature. If your state legislature allows arrestees, there's an arrestee index. There's also a missing person index for remains. Yeah, like you put identified remains in there, and then eventually you might be able to find out who it is. Currently, I'm a CODIS user. That is my only role at the moment. What was your role in the fall of November of 2022? I was a CODIS user. Do you have any administrative responsibilities with CODIS? Not currently. Have you in the past? In the past, I have served as the alternate state administrator for Idaho. Hey, thanks. Cinnamon Sun Freak. I like saying that name. I had a struggle with it at the beginning, but Cinnamon Sun Freak. Let's see, let me take that out of there. If I'm understanding the question correctly, there's different types of DNA profiles, and what goes into CODIS is known as STR. I think that's short. STR profile or short tandem repeat. There you go. So there's little sections of. I mean, it's it's a kind of an easy concept if you just think of like, let's say they're on a piano. It all looks the same, right? Like every piano has the same keys on them. But then let's say, the DNA is different on different locations. Each one of those little bars, let's say you can paint one pink and blue and red. It's still there, but the other person has yellow, white, and green in that same location, but it looks the same, but in 20 different spots, they grabbed the same 3 segments, and various populations of people have those exact same markers in those positions, but very few have all of the same, because it's only the one person. Only one person has all 20 of them, other than maybe a twin. Hopefully that made sense. In the midst of confusion, someone in law enforcement got Kopak, and no, they didn't. Yeah, Kopak had nothing to do with it. Anyways, let's go forward. If I'm understanding the question correctly, there's a different type of DNA profiles, and what goes into CODIS is known as an STR profile or short tandem repeat. What kind of information is in a short tandem repeat or STR? Can I give a brief explanation about DNA? Sure. So DNA is a substance that's found in the cells of our body. It acts as a blueprint. It tells our body what form to take and how to function. Between individuals, it is over 99% the same. That is why we all have the same basic structure and our bodies function in basically the same way. I don't know, man. Some of these Kohbergers, they're a little outside of this range. I think missing perhaps never mind. In forensics and in STRs, we are targeting that less than 1% that is unique to an individual, with the exception of identical twins. Ha! I just said that. Isn't that crazy, you guys? Right. So they're trying to find these markers, and it's just, like they said in there, that 99% we share the same exact DNA. There's only this small little portion that's different. And so what they did was, on the DNA strand, they found those portions that are different on everybody. And they're not different on everybody, right? Because some people there's a percentage. It'll say like 1 in 1,000 people have this combination. And then the next marker, 1 in 50 have that one. Then the next marker is 1 in 30, then 1 in 2, and blah, blah, blah. It goes like that, right? So if you have all 20 of them, you multiply the number at the bottom times each other all the way through, and at the very end, you get a crazy number in terms of the odds of having that. Now, those numbers, where they come up with 1 in 50, those are just sort of based on, like a database over time. Maybe those numbers can change slightly, but it's still like huge numbers. Anyways, in forensic, in STR, we are targeting that less than 1% that is unique to an individual, with the exception of identical twins. And so areas of DNA that vary widely between individuals don't code for anything typically. So it doesn't tell us anything about a person. When I look at an STR profile, I can tell you if that person is genetically male or genetically female, and that's all. So that's interesting, because that would be the 1 in 2 situation. Do you have what a SNP profile is? I do. What is that? A SNP profile is a single nucleotide polymorphism. So you're looking at a single nucleotide, whereas the STR is a series of repeating nucleotides, a specific repeat that we're looking for. The SNP, then, is that a closer look at a person's genome? I would like to state that I'm not an expert on SNPs. I'm not qualified in the SNP technology, and I have not ever been qualified in the SNP technology. With STRs, depending on the chemistry, you're looking at anywhere from 13 to 25 plus locations. With SNPs, my understanding is, in general, you're looking at a minimum of 10,000. Does that mean there's more information about a human contained in an SNP than there is in an STR profile? Let's see. And that says, Mr. Nye, Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point. This witness is not disclosed as an expert, and she just testified she's not an expert in SNP technology. The court said, I appreciate that with respect to her answer, and I will take that into account in the event the defense intends to rely on that testimony. I took it as sort of a background about her general knowledge. Me too. I don't know what the hell that objection was. It was just, Hey, thank you, Von Dawson.
Love the way you
hey, help me, Rhonda. If you're not going to follow along with what we're doing currently, go do something else, okay? And see, you come in here and you pretend that you don't understand why people treat you a certain way, and all you do is come in here and create sort of, you're trying to look for attention. We're not talking about Brent Kopacka. Have I mentioned Brent Kopacka one time in the thing that I'm reading here? Even once. Hey, thanks, Von Dazen. All right, so we're going to have to put you on timeout here in a minute if you keep doing it. Just follow along with what we're doing here, and if you want to talk about the actual factual, real information in the case, that'll be great. But if you bring up Brent Kopacka one more time, we'll have to time you out. All right, because Brent Kopacka has nothing to do with the case, and you are sullying his name even further by bringing him up in the deaths of 4 people. All right, so thank you very much. And yes, you guys, if you'd like to support this channel, who actually gives a damn about true crime, I would appreciate it. All right, I appreciate that with respect to her answer. I will take that into account in the event the defense intends to rely on that testimony. I took it as sort of a background about her general knowledge. I'll allow it for now. I'm not taking it as an expert testimony about the SMP beyond the basic understanding of what SMP is. Thank you. Do you remember my question? Yes, I would assume if you're looking at a larger part of the human genome, that would be getting a larger amount of information about someone. I have one more question about CODIS, and then I want to move into a different area. You mentioned that there's 4 indexes, and you talked about a forensic index. Correct. Oh, Jesus. Jesus, do I have to play that button? Correct. Where is it?
Correct.
The forensic index is where profiles generated from items of evidence can be uploaded. There are rules about what can be uploaded, though. It cannot match someone known to be the victim of a crime. It cannot match someone whose DNA should be in a place outside of a crime being committed. It cannot be anything taken directly from a suspect of a crime where you would reasonably assume their DNA would be present. Let me see. There's 4 indexes you talked about. Correct. What is that used for? The forensic index is where profiles generated from items of evidence can be uploaded. There are rules about what can be uploaded, though. It cannot match someone known to be the victim of a crime. Okay, that kind of makes sense. I mean, it's for criminals, the database, and the person's known. So it cannot match someone whose DNA should be in a place outside of a crime being committed. I don't know what that means. It cannot be anything taken directly from a suspect of a crime where you would reasonably assume their DNA would be present. Right, like, well, let's see. How does that work with, when you collect, for example, the dad's DNA out of the garbage can, and you upload that, but you're looking for Brian Kohberger's DNA, and it should be present in the garbage. It says it must be related to the crime. So I guess what they're doing, well, all they're doing is comparing it. So they're not really, let's see, the DNA that they uploaded was the DNA from the knife sheath. That went into CODIS. And then I think they compared the father's DNA to CODIS, but I'm not sure they uploaded it into the system. They just took his DNA and tried to compare it to the sample. Something like that. Yeah. Alright guys, I'll try it again. If you're out there and you have the ability to help support the channel tonight, I would appreciate it. We're doing in the reading phase now, where it generates almost zero enthusiasm. But pretend you're enthusiastic. Everybody start typing in numbers again, and let's see what happens. We got to keep on going through the end of the month here. We've only got 6 more days. It must be related to a crime, and it must be believed to be from a putative perpetrator of that crime. Okay, so that would be the DNA from the knife sheath. So if I understand it, you use DNA, get a STR, and only under certain circumstances can you use CODIS. Do I understand that correct? Understand that right? Correct. Okay, outside of CODIS, and I understand what that does. If you create a profile, a DNA profile of somebody, is that a separate thing you do in your lab, even if you're not going to run them through CODIS? Yes, when we receive items of evidence or samples from known individuals, we generate a DNA profile from those. Did you become involved in the homicide in Moscow from 2022? Involved as a manager of the laboratory in Meridian. I haven't actually done any work on any evidence in the case or issued any reports. Hey, welcome, Mike Twet. Is that how you say it? Not really sure how to, or tweet, or type it in phonetically for me. I'll see if I can remember. Hey, Susie sent a coffee in. Thank you. Oh, Twix. Huh? You're not the right one. Like a bird, tweet. Oh, tweet. Okay. Cool. Mike Tweet. Or like what you would used to do on Twitter when it was called Twitter. I don't know what you call it on X. Well, I sent out a... what? Kind of made sense when it was Twitter and a tweet. Now it's X and... what are those called? A Z? Alright, it's fair to say you did not go to that residence then. So, you know. Now they're getting to the case now. As a lab manager... do you understand about what evidence has come into the lab from that cases? What do you mean that case? Hold on a second. Get that in there. Gotta make sure I get everybody that's in here. I saw a coffee come in, but I don't see it in my email. Not sure. Oh, there it is, right there. And that is Susie. So put that in there. All right. As a lab manager, do you understand about what evidence has come into the lab from the case? There was a lot of evidence submitted. I have general knowledge of items that have come in, but I couldn't provide you a detailed list off the top of my head. That's okay. I won't ask you to. Thank you. As a lab manager, are you aware of different bits of testing that were done related to this case? In general, yes. Are you aware of a profile called Unknown Male A? Yes. Where did that come from? Hey, look at that, Sandy Shirley. And welcome, Jeepsy Jody. And Sandy Shirley gifted 5. So I'll give you 5 chances in there. Very kind, very kind. We got Joanne Smith, welcome. Michelle Sakura, Moon Dancer, Tiny Bits of Magic, and Joe McChesney. And if you notice, GSU still didn't get one. What the hell's going on? My God, everybody. All right, so now they're asking about that one, unknown male A, and that's likely going to be the DNA on the knife sheath, wouldn't you think? Okay, it came from a swab taken from a knife sheath. There you go. That was submitted by Moscow Police Department. Are you aware of unknown male B? I believe that was another sample from hearing the previous testimony that was from the house. I would only want you to testify from your own base of knowledge. From my own memory, I don't recall exactly where that was from. So this might be the one on the handrail or something like that. Hey, thanks, Allie Cake, and welcome, Jennifer Ladybug. It says, fair enough. Thank you for clarifying that for me. Are you aware that investigative genetic genealogy or forensic investigative genetic genealogy was used in this case? Yes. What was your role in that? My role specific to this case was facilitating the signing of a memorandum of understanding, making sure all parties received it and had signed it. Those parties being the police agency, the prosecuting attorney's office, as well as a member of ISP management team. And then When the preliminary report was received, my job was to look over it, ensure that it had all the required pieces in the report, and then to authorize payment of the invoice for that testing. Wow, you guys, thanks for gifting so many memberships. Very cool. So basically she's setting up the, just, I don't know. I mean, it's not really specific to me what she's saying. And then when the preliminary report was received, my job was to look over it, ensure, because what you do is you load the DNA profile into CODIS from the knife sheath so that it's always in there. That's sort of the standard that you use to eventually, like you put the 20 markers in the CODIS that came from the knife sheath. Then when they got the father's DNA from the trash, they compared it to that, and it turns out it was like a biological father. Then they, but the IgG is what led to Kohberger himself, but then they did a regular investigation after that once the tip of his name came in. Wow, you guys, how did we get going on this gifted membership roll here? That's awesome. Very cool. So let's see, we've got welcome to Jennifer Ladybug, Starla, Simple Life, Chicky Doo, and UA Crimson Tide, something like that. Thanks, you guys. Wow. As far as it says, what role did you have with the laboratory that was going to perform the forensic investigative genealogy work? So that would be Othram. As far as how we came to be in contact with them, so when ISP decided to pursue contact with laboratory that would perform the SNP testing that we talked about earlier, we're a state agency, so we don't just get to call up anybody and hire them. So we had to go through a bid process. So part of my role was developing the scope of work. I wonder how they did that quietly behind the scenes of work, so that invitation to bid, as in what we expected the vendor to perform. And then the bids came in. So they must have had an unknown profile and said, hey, what would this cost? And then I wonder how Othram won that. I mean, how did that one lab win that one? I was involved in the team that evaluated the document that were submitted, and then ultimately the Division of Purchasing determined who won the bid. Did Idaho State Police Forensics have a contract with this laboratory, Othram? They were the winning bid through that process, and so they were under contract with the Department of Purchasing, correct? Is the contract with the Department of Purchasing that you perform these services, no wait, that's not a question. It says they were the winning bid through the process, and so they were under contract with the Department of Purchasing, correct? Is the contract with the Department of Purchasing that you perform these services and we pay you for them essentially, or does it have more meat to it to talk about some of the things that you were talking about? How you help develop, I guess, the job description and what would be required. I'm really not familiar with the Department Purchasing day-to-day operations or how they operate. My role was strictly developing that scope of work. We expect them to develop the profiles that can be uploaded to the public genealogy databases. We expect them to provide us a written report. We expect the report to contain certain things. We have a header, to have a date, to list the case number, have page numbers, those kinds of things. Outside that description of the scope of work and the requirements, did your lab have a separate contract with Othram that basically said you agree to these things? Hey, thanks, Grit Sass. And who won that one? Doesn't look like anybody's got one yet. It's kind of weird. But hers never got given out to somebody, right? Outside the description of the scope of work and the requirement, did your lab have a separate contract with Othram that basically said you agree to these things? We had that. They won the bid from Division of Purchasing, and that's the state contract for performing that work. You mentioned a memorandum of understanding you helped facilitate to be signed by the parties. Was Othram one of the parties that signed that? No, this is a memorandum between the law enforcement agencies, the prosecuting attorney's office, and the laboratory. And in that memorandum of understanding, that indicated that the interim department of Justice, the Department of Justice interim policy applied. Is that right? I believe it did. I don't have the exact text memorized. If I showed you a copy of that memorandum of understanding, would that help you remember if that was part of it? Yes. Your Honor, if I have just a moment to gather that, it's not being offered as an exhibit. The court said, just refreshing, Miss Taylor, it's to aid in her memory. The court said, show it to State Counsel. Miss Taylor says, does looking at that refresh your memory as to whether the Department of Justice interim policy applied? It does say in the first paragraph that it did apply. And, Your Honor, I'm going to refer to Defense Exhibit D19 here and ask the witness be shown that, and then I'll provide the court my copy. When was this filed? That would have been filed with the amended Frank's memorandum. The court said, when was this filed? And Miss Taylor said, that would have been filed with the amended Frank's memorandum on the bottom of that page. I'm sorry. The court said, I've got thousands of filings. I have to go by the date to find things. Miss Taylor said, I think it was November 18th or the 20th at the bottom of that page. However, you can see some numbers in red and those numbered to make it easier to find. Seems like Miss Taylor she's not really organized. The judge is constantly having to, hey, I need you to give me this stuff in an organized way so I can look at it. Oh, they joined the channel. Hey, welcome, Grit Sass. I thought you gifted one. All right. Thanks, Paulette. Well, welcome, Grit Sass. All right. The court said, I just need to find it in the computer first. All right, I found it in my printed documents. And Ms. Taylor is back in saying, is that the Department of Justice interim policy? Yes, the Department of Justice interim policy on forensic genetic genealogy, DNA analysis, and searching. And in Section 7, I believe it's Section 7 or page 7, investigative caution, that section. Let me ask you the question. Are you familiar with the provision in that policy that says if there's a prosecution case, if somebody is arrested and there's a prosecution case, all items in the forensic investigative genetic genealogy should be preserved for court purposes? I believe that is part of, I don't think it's in Section 7. It might be, but I believe that is part of preserving. So here's the thing, everybody. Like, all of these defense attorneys want to make it seem like it's bad that the FBI got rid. They don't want to share the tree that they came up with that led to Brian Kohberger. And those have people's names on it, and just random relatives, etc., and it's absolutely irrelevant. And the reason is because after you go through the genealogy, you can determine whether or not it was accurate by the fact if it led to the right person. All right? You don't need to go back and test. Ooh, well, they had a second cousin over there. It shouldn't have led to that person. Look at that. The thing is that when they looked at it, it led to Brian Kohberger. All right? And then law enforcement had to then investigate him as if it was a lead where somebody out of the blue said, hey, look into a guy named Brian Kohberger. Then they started looking at him, and by God, everything matched up. And then it turns out that the So let's say they had the DNA on the knife sheath and it was in CODIS, but there was no such thing as IgG. And then somebody randomly out there said, hey, I think it might be this Brian Kohberger guy. And law enforcement looked and said, he has a White launcher. Holy shit, he's a criminology professor. And look at that. We can see on that one camera, he's missing a front license plate, and that's exactly like his car. Let's keep following this guy. All right, let's get, we've got the DNA in the database. Let's get that sample out of the garbage can and let's see what we can find. They go over there, they take the garbage, and they go, oh, wow, look at this. Out of the trash, we were able to find the biological father of Brian Kohberger. So that's enough. So let's get a swab of this guy. Let's do a search, an arrest warrant on him because of that. They arrest him, get the swab, and then the swab is compared to the DNA on the knife sheath 1-to-1, and it's a 100% match. You see how that works? It doesn't matter that there was how they did the DNA, the family tree, etc. They want to imply a conspiracy theory, like that there's some sort of, they didn't even do any family tree. They just put his name and pretended they did it that way, and we're not going to show you the tree information. We planted the DNA. That's what all of the pro-burger types, they believe in that kind of stuff, that they would do that. Like the FBI would be doing that with local law enforcement. It's insane. He wasn't a professor. He was a criminology. I don't know if I said professor, I mistake, but he was criminology. Well, he kind of was. I mean, he was a doctorate student, so he. No, they didn't do that. Help me around it. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of help me around it now. That's hold on a second. Maybe 30 minutes. Maybe come back later. Yeah, he was a doctorate student though. So, I mean, he did great papers and so forth. I don't know if that makes him, does that make him sort of a little bit of a professor-y kind of, well, whatever it is, he was a doctorate student, and he was taught by a serial killer teacher from the place he came from in Pennsylvania. Yeah. All right, let's see. Hey, thanks, Moxie Drapo. Let's see. Moxie Drapo says, thank you, Gray, for all your amazing hard work and dedication to the horrible attack on these innocent kids.
Dedication to this horrible attack on these innocent kids. My hope and prayer is just for the families.
Yeah, justice for the family, right? Or is just for the family. Yeah, I mean, and they went through hell. I don't know if you mean justice for the families or just for the families. Like, yeah, I mean, you're praying for the family because they went through a bunch of hell. I mean, imagine that was your own kid that got absolutely butchered by a nut job named Brian Kohberger. Well, what difference does it make what his name was, Gray? Well, no, I just said, never mind. Yeah, if it was a guy named Jim Smith, it wouldn't be as bad. But because it was Brian Kohberger, it was much worse, all right? I believe that, okay, let's go back here. Let me ask you a question. Are you familiar with the provisions in that policy that, hold on. There we go. Are you familiar with the provisions in that policy that says if there's a prosecution case, if somebody is arrested and there's a prosecution case, all items in the forensic investigative genetic genealogy should be preserved for court purposes? I believe that is part of, I don't think it's in section 7, it might be, but I believe that's part of preserving. Okay, what I want to know is, what did Othram preserve? I don't know, she said. What did you get back? We received a preliminary report. In other cases, we will sometimes get back the DNA extract that was sent to them. I don't recall if we got that back in this case. Anything our laboratory receives, we return to the submitting agency. Would validation be part of that? Validation studies? I wouldn't assume so. I wouldn't assume that would be part of this, no. Would bench notes be important? The court said, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. What notes? Ms. Taylor said, bench notes, lab bench notes. Court said, thank you. The witness said, for our laboratory, we designate those as part of our case record. I'm not familiar with what Othram designates as part of their case record. So I guess then that means you don't have any of those. No, only preliminary report. All right. I'll move to a different area of questioning, and it's about the requirements with Othram. You mentioned the goal was to create profiles and create a report, but to search public databases. Correct. There are public genealogy databases that will allow entry of law enforcement samples, and that is part of the scope of work. They were required to enter it into those databases. And are you aware that there are databases that do not allow law enforcement to search? So this is kind of like the main argument. Were you part of work after? Hey, hey, there's GSU PM. I hope you don't mind navy blue. GSU PM. That's all I could. That's what I found. And by the way, there GSU is. There she is. So if you guys want to, I don't know what the deal is. People were trying to give away memberships again, and it didn't pop up with your name. Thank you. But anyways, I hope you don't mind navy blue. I did one of the ones that has a little ball on the top. All right. Let's see. Were you part of work after Othram began their work to try to do any investigation? I was not. As far as I guess, let's see. I was not. As far as, I guess I'm unclear. We received evidence submitted to the laboratory before, during, and after for all sections. Is that what you're referring to? Let me rephrase my question. I think that question was too broad. While Othram was doing their work, were you part of any work to help Othram? For instance, did you get any documents that you did some research on to try to help Othram? No. Were you aware that Othram was just stopped from doing any further work at some point? I was aware of that. And was this before they produced any results? Any result? I think it probably with an S at the end there. Let's see. No, we received a preliminary report. I recall receiving that because that's how I know I can approve payment of the invoice. So I know we received that prior to them being told they were stopped. Were you part of the decision to stop them? I was not. How did you find out about it? I found out about it in an email from my laboratory system director. Hey, thank you, Ali Cake. As in, I'll eat cake.
Ocean wave, ocean wave, ocean wave.
If Othram had a file, let's see, how did you find out about it? I found out about it in an email from my laboratory system director. Do you remember when that happened? I don't recall. Does the forensic lab continue to contract with Othram? Yes. If Othram had a file that would have had validation studies, I think it was the speed is what was the issue with Othram. You know, they take months sometimes, and this wasn't a case they wanted to wait months, so they had a FBI jumped in, took over the profile, and used some of the backdoor methods, and got a killer off the streets. If Othram had a file that would have, and by the way, if this was all fake, why would you have to do all this stuff? You know, like, let's say it was they planted DNA from Kohberger. Why wouldn't you just plan it? Like you just, the FBI does it from the beginning and says, oh, you know what? Look at this. Our genealogy led right to it. Or you could say, well, that's because our states don't work that way. We have to put it out there for bids first. We knew that they were going to fail because they wouldn't find it. And then we would jump in and, it's insane, you guys. Pure insanity. Why would you... They wanted to get the results fast, so that's why they did it how they did it. They would have been able to figure it out over a long period of time if Kohberger's family didn't have any first or even second cousins in there. Hey, look at that. Jessica Miller gifted a membership to Some Rando. And by the way, I didn't just call them that. That's what their actual name is. Some Rando. What do you make of that, huh? Thank you, Moofies.
Ocean wave, ocean wave, ocean wave.
If Othram had a file that would have had validation studies and bench notes, anything they did on the case, would you have received that? Again, validation studies would be odd to associate with individual cases, so I wouldn't assume they would do that. Right. Why would you do that? Again, I'm not familiar with their procedures, and as far as who would receive documents, usually it would be, I would assume, the agency which received that preliminary report. You mentioned you're not familiar with their procedures. Not in detail, no. What procedures are you familiar with? For Othram? Yes. As part of the bid process, all of the bidders were required to submit. I believe they were required to submit their procedures, and it was essentially just looking over them to say, yes, they have a procedure in place for extracting DNA. Yes, they have a procedure in place for doing SNPs. So yes, they meet the minimums for the invitation to bid. But again, I'm not qualified in that technology, so I wouldn't have studied them or rendered any opinion on them. I won't ask you for your opinion on them. I won't ask you to quote them to me. But you saw those, yes, at the very beginning of the bid. Let's switch gears. In the case we are here for today, do you recall there being a trash pull? I'm sorry. The court reporter said, I'm sorry, there being a what? Miss Taylor said, a trash pull. She must have went, trash pull. The witness says, I recall receiving evidence from a trash pull. Correct? I recall. How come I make myself laugh sometimes? I don't get it. Yeah. I mean, look at that right here. She says trash pull. The court reporter said, I'm sorry, there being a what? And she says a trash pull. But I'm just wondering the first time, I mean, what the hell did it sound like the first time? Which, a trash pull. She did remember, who's watched the movie Evil Dead 2? But then it was the second part of that one, where he had to go up and do Kalatu, Barata, Nefarious. So he had to remember these 3 words to get this book to open or something. And he gets up there and he's supposed to remember it's like Kalatu, Barata, Nektu or something. But he doesn't remember the last word, so he thinks he can trick the gods by going Kalatu, Barata. And he looks around for a little bit. That was hilarious. But anyways, I'm just kind of wondering if Ann Taylor, sounded a little bit like that. Travel. I'm sorry? There being a what? Oh, a trash pull. I recall receiving evidence from a trash pull, correct? Correct. I mean, she says, I recall receiving evidence from a trash pull, correct. Ms. Taylor, what role did you have in deciding anything about the trash pull? Nothing about the trash pull occurring. I do recall there being a brief I can't remember if it was a phone meeting or a video meeting, and just being asked in general what items from someone's trash are good for DNA. Did you give any advice? I think I'll try to get to page 100. This is 175 pages. We're on 59 right now. All right. About to keep going over this. Did you give advice? I don't know if it was me specifically or another member of our DNA unit, but we did offer suggestions on items that are good for DNA. Did you receive items to test? Yes. What instructions were you given about those items? The discussion was a person of interest had been developed and to analyze the items from the trash to determine if they could be inclusive of the DNA profile that was developed from the knife sheath. I mean, this is exactly what we've been talking about. Unknown male A. What date was that you received the trash? The trash was received into the laboratory on December 28th of 2022. So you were looking for a male profile. Correct. All right, did you find a male profile? I didn't perform the actual testing, but yes, there were male profiles developed. How many? I don't know. Do you know anything about either male profile or any of them? I believe one of the male profiles, designated as E, was determined they could be a biological parent or child of the profile from the knife sheath. Right, so it was like 50% of the markers maybe. And are you aware that Brian Kohberger's DNA was in the trash? I was not aware. Did you become aware? I became aware later. We didn't have his name at that time. You didn't know his name on December 28th? No, I did not. Okay, were you on December 28th, were you aware that not male E, but another male profile had been identified from the trash? The trash pull? I knew there were some mixtures of DNA that were also included. One of the mixtures did it have a male DNA profile? I believe it did. And wasn't that profile the major component of that profile with a minor female? I believe that sounds correct. And later, didn't that turn out to be Brian Kohberger? I mean, so what is the point of this? So now we know that Brian Kohberger's DNA was actually in the trash can. I mean, it was in there too, but it took them a while to separate that out. Hey, thanks, Florence White. Yeah, the last couple videos I put out, it's a great video, it's great. Yeah, the last couple videos I put out, I get very few views. I think people they don't like the detail stuff. They want you to the general population want you to just do the bells and whistles and basically, be like, hey everybody, hey, today we're talking about the Kohberger case. Well, let me tell you about this. That's what, and then they'll watch it and everything like that. But if you start getting into the minutia details of something, they start going, it's crazy. All right, anyways, I believe that's, let's see, and wasn't that profile the major component of that profile with a minor female? So you can, whenever there's a mixture, if you have one that's much greater, you can separate them out. If you have a mixture that's just really, and I guess if there was two males mixture, it'd be a lot more difficult. I believe that sounds correct. And later, didn't that return to Brian Kohberger? We actually did not perform that comparison. Did you and I have a discussion a few days ago? We did. Did you tell me that you knew that to be Brian Kohberger's DNA? I said I thought that was, and I could not find the report where we had done that comparison. I've since looked through, and we did not make that comparison, so I cannot say that he was included in that mixture. Our laboratory did not do that comparison. Oh, that's interesting. So she said that to her a couple days before, and then she went to look up the supporting information in the meantime before this hearing and wasn't able to do so. So now Ann Taylor, who was driving to a particular point, and I guess what's sort of interesting is, like, I'd like to know if they did find Kohberger's DNA in there, what item had it on it. Because remember, he was separating his DNA into plastic bags and putting it into the neighbor's trash can. I don't know, probably his sister, Danny. His sister lived there too. And there was a minor female, major male. That is my understanding. And you could, by eye, look at that and tell that's Brian Kohberger, couldn't you, if you wanted to? If I wanted to, I could probably look. I did not. Okay, you could still do it today if you wanted to. If there was a request to do the comparison again, we don't do visual comparison, evidence to evidence. Our procedures don't allow us to do that for probative comparisons. I need, let's see, I need you to help me understand that a little bit. I am having that question because I understand there was an unknown male bee found on lab item 30. Do you know what I'm talking about? No. Okay, well, I also understand that there was a cigarette butt taken from custody in connection with the case investigation. Are you familiar with that? I am familiar with that. And that was compared to the DNA on the knife sheath. Is that right? Yes. And that was found to be excludable. Am I using that word right? It was an exclusion, correct. So you compared something. So now we know that there was a cigarette butt or something they found that they wanted to compare. It was taken from somebody to, so you compared something that was taken from somebody to an item of evidence, is that right? Something that was secondary reference, as in someone identified it as they saw that person using that item. They saw that person dispose of that item. Something that was a secondary reference. As in someone identified it as they saw that person using that item. They saw that person dispose. This is an answer by the witness. Dispose of that item. So the question was, so you compared something that was taken from somebody to an item of evidence. So yeah, the DNA on the knife sheath, but when they say taken from somebody, and then she said something that was a secondary reference, as in someone identified it as they saw that person using that item. They saw that person dispose of that item. That item, oh, I see. So there was these other, hey, it's Brent Kopacka, go get the cigarette butt. Like all these people were saying that this person did this and this and this and this, and in the investigation, so they were testing different things. That item was collected and used as a reference sample from that person because there was someone who said that is from that person. Okay, when you got the trash to go through in the lab, you knew that you were looking for a male, right? So what Taylor wants her to say is that she knew that they were looking for Kohberger's DNA right out of the chute. Okay. And she said, yep, I knew that we were looking for male DNA, and you knew that the male and his family members lived in a house that produced that bag of trash. Is that right? Yes, but not who produced each individual item in that trash pull. Okay, it was labeled, this water bottle is from person of interest. This tissue is from a sibling. This Q-tip is from a parent. We didn't have that information. It was just, here's some items from a trash pull. Right. And one of the items you took and developed male E, right? I did not, but yes, the laboratory did. In general, the lab developed male E. Correct. And compared male A and male E. There was a paternity statistic calculated because they were both single source profiles, meaning only from one individual. Okay, there's another male profile. Okay, and it says, and there's another male profile. That was part of a mixture, to my knowledge, meaning more than, and this is out of the trash pull. Okay, so it's, it's out of the Kohberger's trash can. But who cares, right? Because the DNA in the trash can match the DNA on the knife sheath. All right, you guys, we're on one of those lulls, so if you're out there and you have the ability to help support the channel, we're still probably at about, I don't know, 60% tonight of a goal. That'd be great. You know what's weird is it's hard to get, I mean, maybe it's the topic, but is there something else going on right now that I'm not aware about? It seems odd to only have 202 people, but I keep using up all of my notifications because I've been putting out a lot of videos, etc. So I'm not sure what YouTube's doing. No idea. It was higher though earlier. It was, well, not much. Right, and also, you know, if you guys want to do the buy me a coffees, you got the super chats. You can, if you want the notebook and pen without trying to get lucky on the spin, you could send 30 to PayPal. I'll send the notebook, the pen, the stress ball, and the poker chip / ball marker for golf. Let's see. Oh, there's a game on? What's the game? Maybe that's what the deal is. Single source profile. Okay. And there's another male profile. That was part of a mixture, to my knowledge, meaning more than one person's DNA present on that item. Again, only one male, though. Is that right? So when there's a mixture on an item of evidence, I don't know if you want me to explain the process. The first step is determining number of contributors to that mixture. Then our laboratory utilizes a software program to help break out the components of that mixture. When one individual is male, it's not always possible to say the gender of the second person. Males have an X and a Y chromosome. Females only have an X. So if there, I get it. So if there's an X and a Y present, it could be one male. It could be two males. It could also be a male and a female, right? Because it could be XY and the female just an X, but it still is an X and there's still a Y. If there was only an X, there would be a female in there. But with XY, there's no way of knowing, and there's no such thing as a YY. Although never mind. So if there's an X and a Y present, it could be one male. It could be two males. It could be male and a female. Without comparing to known reference samples, I can't say that, and I haven't seen the profile to my knowledge. Okay, did you tell me though on that sample, and I'm talking about 95.9.1, that was a male and a female. I believe that, I don't know if it was designated as that in the laboratory report. To my knowledge, it was. I can't remember what the report said. Again, I didn't generate the report and didn't do the work, so I'm not as familiar with it, and if it was my own work. It said, okay. Now, I mean, as if it was their own work, so they would have been more familiar if they did it. Okay, male B was also a mixture, wasn't it? I don't know. Okay. It was designated as an unknown male B again. I don't know if it was from a mixture sample or not. Your Honor, if I may have just a moment, thank you for that. Just a couple other questions for you as it relates to male E. It was compared to the sheath, is that right? Correct, a paternity comparison. Male E profile was compared to a lot of other evidence items in the case, wasn't it? Correct. And you are allowed to do manual interpretation per your policy, right? Let's see, if there is, so it's not black and white. Let's see, if there is, so it's not black and white. So if it is a single source and we can look at it and say that that person is excluded, they are not the source of the DNA, then yes, that can be done manual. And by manual, I mean a person looking at it. If it is a probative comparison, and how we define a probative comparison is if it's saying something about who could be the source of the DNA on an item of evidence that's relevant to the case, then no, we do not do a manual comparison and issue a statement about that, because all of our standards, we have to issue a statistic so that the tier of fact has something to gauge how unique that could be. Right, so that means, they give you that's where you get the 1 in 97 octillion or whatever the hell, So they're always saying it's statistical, instead of saying, looking at this is the same person. What is the likelihood that the DNA could be from someone else? We provide that statistic. We don't just say it matches. That requires a statistical calculation, which we use as a probabilistic genotyping software to do. All right, you guys are having one of those massive lulls here where it's going to keep us from reaching the goal. So if you guys have the ability, that would be awesome. It was cool getting all those memberships, though. That'd be a better way to do it. Maybe we can still figure out a way to get GSU theirs. Apparently, they're signed up. I apologize. I think I got lost in there. Really? Man, that made total sense. Are you telling me because it was a mix, you couldn't have done a manual interpretation? Because it's a mixed profile, and because if it was, you're saying it was Brian Kohberger's DNA present. That would be a probative comparison in the case, which we have to provide a statistic in order to make that statement. In order to deconvolute a mixture, we are no longer allowed to do those manually. A deconvolute as in separate the mixture into its components. We have a software. I think what that's going to be the key to DNA in the future is just to be able to take one cell and get a DNA profile from it. That's what they need to be able to do, because then you could just when you have a mixture, you isolate a cell from each side and then get the complete DNA profile from each of them, but it's not how it is currently. Doesn't work that way. Thank you, Sirius Black. We are no longer allowed to do those manually, deconvolute, as in separate the mixture into its components. We have a software. That software was not designed for, nor was it validated for, doing evidence-to-evidence comparison. Now you're speaking my language. Validations are important for integrity. Is that right? In forensics, our laboratory uses validations to ensure any new tool is working properly. Now, at some point later, your lab issued a report saying matching the DNA on the sheath with DNA taken from Brian Kohberger. Is that right? That's correct, and a statistic was provided. Now I want to talk about what we're talking about when we say the sheath. You're familiar with what happened with the sheath for swabbing, is that right? I've seen the sheath, and I know how our laboratory performs swabbing of evidence, but I did not swab that item of evidence, nor did I see it being swabbed. As I understand it, though, you've read the lab notes. At one point, I believe I did read the notes. I think I was asked a question, and the analyst was out of town or something. Hey, thanks, Great Dane Mom. 5th super chat on a live stream. Thank you. I'm kind of interested to read this part here. I'm wondering if she's trying to maybe point out that it wasn't done right or something. Hey, look at that. Ann Davis just gifted a membership to Florence White. Very cool. Let's see. I've seen the sheet. Let's see. As I understand it, though, you've read the lab notes. At one point, I believe I did read the notes. I think I was asked a question, and the analyst was out of town or something. And I think you answered that question to law enforcement after consulting somebody else who was with the swabber when the sheath was swabbed. Is that right? It's sounding familiar. If I understand the lab reports, it's a single source on the knife sheath. Is that right? Correct. Does that mean it's only one person in that area? Yeah. What kind of a question is that? Yes, that was detected through testing. Tell me where you think that sheath was swabbed for the purpose of DNA collection. I believe the analyst swabbed. There's kind of a snap or a button that was the top of the snap, and that's the area that was swabbed. There were other areas on it sampled as well. For the purpose of unknown male A, that you're telling us later came back to Brian Kohberger, that's the only place I want to talk about right now. Are we on the top? Are we on the top of the button, the outside or the inside, the socket portion of the button? I know on the top. I thought it was on the underside of the button, but anyways. I don't recall if she swabbed the underside or not. I'd have to look at her notes again. Do you know if that sheath was part of that preserved for fingerprinting? The swabbing was done first. That's our laboratory standard order of processing. If the DNA is needed and fingerprints, they will work together. Essentially, fingerprints will say we can see some possible ridge details, so if you can avoid this area after DNA says we want to swab this and they come to a decision of what would best suit that item of evidence to determine where to swab, so the swabbing takes place first. This is pretty interesting, don't you think? We get to hear the actual, like it's kind of, it's pretty crazy. DNA says we swab this and then come to the decision of what would best suit that and items of evidence. I think I don't have any other questions right now. Thank you. The court says, how long do you think you have? I'm just trying to gauge a break here. Mr. Nye, I say 10 minutes. The court says, let's take 10 minutes and we'll be back. The court said, Mr. Nye, you may inquire. All right, so now we got Mr. Nye up there. I'm not even sure what Ann Taylor, what did she even get out of that witness, you guys? It's like she's just wasting the court's time. What was significant about anything that she just asked in that whole thing? Man, if I was the judge, I'd be pissed off. I mean, what are you doing? It's just... Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with that elusive gift membership, but that was just referenced down there. Thanks, K-Me up there. Try it again, GSU. Click on the gift up there and just see if it lets you sign up again or something. I'm just wondering if it just sort of... Hey, thanks, Jeepsy Jody.
Finally a victory for justice for Kaylee, Maddie, Zana, Ethan. This goes out to their families. Thank you, Gray, for your hard work and giving us no BS content. So refreshing.
Yeah. I've communicated with Steve Gonzalez. We don't, he doesn't get into details and stuff like that, but it's pretty interesting. I think I'd be sort of similar to him. Like at some point you just, who gives a damn what people think? I just got to do what I got to do. It's probably right, Mark. Hey, look at this. Look at this one. Oh, God. If the defense cross-exam is any indication, Ann Taylor will start a YouTube fishing channel. Yeah. I might start one. True crime fishing with Gray Hughes. Let's see. I've tried for months to get gifted membership for Missy 6. GSU PM is not alone. Weird. Well, why don't you guys try it again? See if you can get GSU PM a membership. That'd be awesome. And I'll tell you what, if you do 10 more memberships, then I'll get 5, so that'll be 15. All right. Is that a good? That's 25 from me. Of course, I mean it goes in there, and then, well, by the time it's all said and done, it costs me like 15, I think, with taxes and everything. I have to pay taxes on my own money that I'm giving to the. Kind of weird. But there you go, you guys. If you guys do 10 more, I'll do 5, and then that'll be 15. And if you don't get one by then, GSU PM, I don't know. Hey, okay, there's one of them. All right. Very cool. And by the way, I'm putting all of you guys that are gifting the memberships into the spin at the end for the notebook package. All right. Appreciate all the money you've done. Yeah, I mean, GSU PM, and there's a lot of people, you guys, like Sandy, Shirley, you donate all the time too. I mean, a lot of people do every day, Alley Cake every day, and Lisa Val. I mean, I don't want to sit here and name names because there's so many people that every single day do something, So I'm really appreciative of that. Sometimes I wish it was more democratic, with more people that were supporting to take the load off of. But we do a lot of great things. I'm hoping to be able to. I'm hoping to be able to give at least 2,000 this month. We're still like way below like what we used to normally do, but I've had better days in the last 10 days, so hopefully we can get up into that area. Maybe do like 1,000 to our DNA fund and 1,000 to our scholarship fund. We'll have 2,000 in it already for this year. That'd be pretty good, wouldn't it? But who knows if we and a lot of times. When you have a really big cases going on and people are watching your videos, the ad revenue can make a big difference. Unfortunately, like I just put out 2 videos in 2 days, and those just bombed, both of them. I think one of them made $29, the other one made like $25. Hey, look at that. The Broken Scout was gifted a membership. I didn't know you weren't one. I thought you all already were one. There's Alley Cake and Moofies and Tumbleweed, Dilly Dilly. All right. Okay. So that Mr. Nye is going to cross-examine the same. Mr. Nye is going to cross-examine the same person. Hey, thanks, Florence White. Good morning. I just have a few questions for you today. So you talked a little bit about policies and procedures in the lab. Do you recall that testimony? Yes, and you talked about that. There are policies and procedures related specifically to DNA. Is that correct? Correct. As part of those policies and procedures, does the lab need to have a legitimate reason to test DNA? Yes. We only test DNA related to criminal investigations or to death investigations, and it needs to be an item that will answer a probative question. So that's a pretty interesting one, because now this person's talking about the blood on the handrail. Does that answer a question? See, this one is whose DNA is on an item associated with the actual crime, the knife sheath. I'm just wondering if that's what this is going to be about. We'll answer a probative question in the case. So, for example, if someone at the lab wanted to test DNA out of curiosity about medical information, that would not be consistent with that policy. Right, because remember Ann Taylor was saying, hey, they could get your medical stuff. We don't do curiosity testing, and none of our testing would provide medical information. You also testified that you were involved in, or maybe primarily responsible for developing the scope of work request for Othram. Is that correct? I was part of that, yes. And what is a scope of work request? That she said, that just goes with, and This was my first one I've done, so I don't have vast experience in this process, but when you're going to contract with a vendor, just going through and outlining what we expect them to do is part of that. And what do you recall about this request specifically? What were you requesting Othram to do? Well, specifically, we were requesting them, if necessary, to perform DNA extraction, pulling the DNA out of the cells on an item of evidence, if necessary. Our laboratory typically did that. We were requesting them to generate a SNP profile using either SMP array or whole genome sequencing. We were requesting them to then upload that to all public databases that allow law enforcement samples. We were requesting them to generate a report. We were requesting them to notify us or to complete the lab portion of the work, generations of the profile within 60 days, I believe. I believe there was also information in there about, I thought they were just, why would they need to extract DNA when the lab in Idaho already extracted the DNA from the knife sheath and gave it to Othram to then upload into the databases? I believe there was also information in there about not publicly giving our case information to the public without our express permission, things of that nature. All right, so what did we get to? How many of those? How many do we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, we need 4 more gifted memberships, and then I'll do 5. All right. So 4 more, and then I do 5. Let's see. I believe there was also information in there about not publicly giving our case information to the public without express permission, things of that nature. Was there anything in the scope of work requests related to medical information? No. So you were asking Othram to determine if this DNA, the person whose DNA this was, had, for example, cancer? No. Now, in your position, and in this case you testified, you didn't actually do any of the testing, but you've read a lot of the reports that were involved. Is that correct? I've seen a lot of the reports. Correct. And of all the reports you've read, have you seen that kind of information? No, the testing our laboratory doesn't generate any medical information. And he also talked about, in the scope of work, Othram was required to provide you with at least one report. At least one report, correct. And did you have a chance to review that? I have seen that report, yes. Did it contain medical information? No, it did not. Now, you also talked a little bit with Miss Taylor about MOU. Do you remember that discussion? Hey, thanks, wise child. And that went to MJ. And we need 3 more, you guys. 3 more. There goes that theory. What theory? What theory are you talking? Oh, you're talking about the memberships. Well, we have 8 possibilities remaining. If we get 3 more from you guys, then I'll do 5. What would testing crime scene DNA for cancer do? It just, I know, they're just asking these questions because Ann Taylor is trying to make it seem like it's unethical to, get medical information about people. And I mean, I don't know. Where did this reputation of Ann Taylor just being this amazing, I think she's just has nothing here, Hey, thanks, Deborah, and uniquely Susie. Putting that in there. Susie retired hospice RM. That's almost as long as Crystal, aka Beaver Gaming sub Crystal. Uniquely Susie retired hospice RN who lives on 37th Street with social security number 3. That's one of the longest names I've ever seen. What's going on? to make up for all the missed. So we need one more, you guys. One more, and then I'll do the 5. Who's doing it? She has a good reputation because she did get a murder conviction overturned on a technicality. Oh, so she looks for little things like that. That's not going to happen in this one. There's no technicality left. And so the killer was a killer. She just got her off. All right, here we go. Here we go. Or him, or whatever. Let's see. So that went to Doxy. Now, let's see. Will my 5 work for getting GSU a membership? Here we go. Here we go. Marina White, Ron G, Rachel Daly, Doodlebug, and RMA. I don't know, man. I think you did something wrong. There's no way in hell, man. Come on. Boot me off. Oh, why don't you just get one on your own? That's all right. That's hilarious. I mean, it's not really that funny. It's just like, wow, what are the odds? I mean, come on. We've tried really hard. Jessica went, oh my God. Oh, man. Yeah. That's pretty funny. Oh my God, J Case just gifted 10. Here we go. Voice of Silence, Queen, BJG, Earth Angel, Joey, Susan Moore, Nicely Done, Karen in Canada. It's not there. It's not there. How could that be? That's impossible. Oh my God. Hey, thanks, J Case. Hey, J Case, as usual, if you win the spin, do you want me to spin again, or I'm doing the spin the wheel part again. Okay. Got it. Man, you gotta be kidding me. GSUPM types in, oh my God. Sent to Gray that my gift setting is on. No, I don't need. I believe you. It's just, I don't know. We've done it before where somebody goes, I'd like to be a member, and the next person who gifts a membership, it went right to that person. Okay, it's unreal. Anyway, hey, thanks for the effort there, Jay. Crazy. That's wild. No, you don't need to send it. I'm just goofing around. All right. So after these are done being counted off. Okay, Tumbleweed to Esma Budgets. Yeah. Pretty soon we'll have to go back over our emojis again. You know, go over what they all mean. Because you guys, once you become a member, you have all of the emojis down below you get to use. There's a lot of them in there. Well, no, GSU isn't. I think she just really wants to win one. I mean, I want her to win one too. Yeah. All right, here we go. Here we go. The parts. I just want to be clear. Who were the parties to that MOU? The parties to that MOU specific to this case were the Moscow Police Department, the Latah County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, and Idaho State Police Forensic Services. So Othram was not a party to that MOU? Correct. And the FBI was not a party to that MOU? Correct. In another part of your testimony, you spoke with Miss Taylor about the trash pull. you recall that testimony? Yes, and that one of the samples that was pulled from the trash, that was a mixed sample. Your lab did not compare that. Is that correct? Correct. And can you explain why you did not compare that? So initially, we did not compare that because it was a mixed profile. We did not know the source of that profile, so it cannot be considered a secondary reference. So we deemed that to be an evidentiary sample. And we can't make a manual comparison of evidence to evidence, especially when there's a mixture. And if the analyst, again, I was not the analyst, if the analyst did the comparison and determined that unknown male A could have been in the mixture, it would have been inappropriate to compare those two samples together per our analytical methods. And so the decision not to compare that, who made that decision? That would have been the analyst that worked that case. So you weren't, to your knowledge, no one at the lab was advised, for example, by the lead investigator on this case, which of those items to test. No. You also gave some testimony about the knife sheath and the swabs on the knife sheath. Do you recall that? Yes. And I know you don't recall exactly where the knife sheath was swabbed, but we've been talking about policies. Do your policies or best practices suggest where a knife sheath or an item like that should be swabbed for DNA? No. It would be impossible for our analytical methods to cover how to swab or where to swab every single item of evidence. We receive quite a wide variety of items into the laboratory. So it's the analyst's job as a scientist and a practitioner in the forensic biology screening and DNA analysis to know what they are targeting. So on this item, I believe there was also blood. So, oh really? So are you talking about which item? So on this item, I believe there was also blood. So they would have been targeting that separate and then also trying to determine who may have handled that. Wow, so are you talking about the knife sheath? So that's interesting. I mean, I don't know if they were talking about the knife sheath. Do your practices or best practices suggest where a knife sheath or an item like that should be swabbed? And then this says, no, it would be impossible for our analytical methods to cover how to swab or where to swab every single item of evidence. We receive quite a wide variety of items into the laboratory. So it's the analyst's job as a scientist, as a practitioner in forensic biology screening and DNA analysis to know what they were targeting. So on this item, when they're saying this item, what are they talking about? I think they're talking about the sheath, which is interesting. There was also blood. This is what this lady's answering. So we've thought that's a possibility that there was blood on the knife sheath, but it was a mixture, but there was one single source of DNA on the button. And so that would, that would actually make it seem like it was more of a possibility that was accidentally left there. So on this item, I believe there was also blood, so they would have been targeting that separate and then also trying to determine who may have handled that. So they would have specifically honed in on the area that whoever handled it would have had to have touched and maybe touched repeatedly. I don't know if this is just a sample. I don't know. It's hard to make out exactly. And why do they hone in on those areas? She might be just hypothetically speaking. And why do they hone in on those areas in particular? Because that's the question we are trying to answer. In forensic DNA analysis, the questions we're trying to answer is, can we link assailant to victim? Well, that's interesting, right? So let's say you have the knife sheath and Brian Kohberger's DNA is on the button, and there's a little bit of blood from xanacronodal on the knife. Well, then now you can actually say that the knife sheath was next to. That's actually a way stronger situation, don't you think? Because the knife sheath, the wacko pro-burgers out there can say The knife sheath was just planted, and there was a little bit of touch DNA on there. Okay? And they just put it there. But now if you have other blood from the victims, now the knife sheath, that means the knife sheath with Brian Kohberger's DNA on the button traveled around in the house and was near other victims. See, that makes it a much bigger deal. In forensic DNA analysis, the question we're trying to answer is, can we link assailant to victim? That's what they're saying right here. Victim to assailant, or one or both to the scene. So in this instance, my understanding, the sheath was found at the scene. So they are talking about the sheath. So trying to link the possible perpetrators or perpetrator to the scene. Now I put an S on there. The Kohbergers, the pro-burgers were like, did you hear they said perpetrators? Kohberger was there. No, it's perpetrator. I accidentally put an S there. You understand that? No, but you said perpetrators, Gray. I heard you. I'm going to use it. Okay, but look at the screen. There's an R. There's no S after it. Don't you guys love how I can have a conversation with the trolls? And they're not even here. And the trolls aren't even here, and I can just, it's amazing. I can think like they do. It's absolutely amazing. I should get super chats just because of that ability. Why would the FBI frame him? A frame job has to have a reason. Hey, there we go. Holy crap, GSU PM. Yeah, we tried.
Thanks, freaks, for all trying tonight. XOXOXO.
Well, thank you. Very kind, very kind. Wow, I mean, I think this is kind of interesting all of a sudden. I mean, more so, because now we know we're actually talking about this sheath here. And why in particular do you hone in on the areas where this person may have handled the knife sheath? Because so DNA is found in the cells in our body, and that includes the skin cells that are sloughed off on our hands when items are handled. So looking for any touch DNA is the term that is most often used, or from someone touching or handling an item. So if I'm understanding correctly, the analyst is swabbing the places that would most likely have that touch DNA on it. Yeah. I mean, that actually makes sense. So you're looking for, you're not necessarily thinking the killer's bleeding. You just want to find where they were holding or touching an item. And if there's blood on there, it's likely from one of the victims. Unless, of course, with stabbing, if you have multiple stabbings and a knife doesn't have that little guard on it, once there's a lot of blood on it, your hand can slip off the handle and cut your own fingers. But I think he either had special gloves on for grip, and also it has that little guard on there. Who are you talking to, Moofies? I wasn't even referring to you at all in any words that I've said. I haven't even seen anything you've typed all night. Let's see. Don't fuss at me, Gray. I was just trying to argue with the people who think he's innocent. I don't even know what you're referring to. No idea. It's amazing how people think that I see every single one of their comments, and if I say something, it had to be related to what they said. It's hard to, right? It's like I'm reading an entire document, and so while I'm reading that, how am I supposed to read the comments in the chat? Anyways, so looking for any touch DNA is the term that is most often used, or from someone touching or handling an item. So if I'm understanding this correctly, the analyst is swabbing the places that would most likely have that touch DNA.
Correct.
No further questions. Redirect. Miss Taylor comes back. Thank you. Your Honor, I would like to start by sharing a computer screen that I have approved with the prosecutor for refreshing her memory. The court said, it's just for refreshing. It's not an exhibit, right? Yeah, it is. May I approach? Go ahead. Jesus. Go ahead. Who doesn't love this judge already? I mean, I'm not sure I'd want to go have a beer with the guy, but he's... Have we established she doesn't remember, or are we just going to stipulate to it? Your Honor, I can ask the question. We can save time if you're going to stipulate to it. Yeah, that's totally fine, Your Honor. Let's do that. Are you going to share the screen with the court or just her? It's just to refresh her memory, Your Honor. Gotcha. We were talking at the end of my questions, and where Mr. Nye just left off with you about where the sheath would have been swabbed. Reading the email that's been placed in front of you, does that refresh your recollection about what you believe to be the place the sheath was swabbed? Very much so. Where was it swabbed? The knife was swabbed the entire... Did you say the knife was swabbed? Jeez, the court said that. Sorry, the knife sheath. Am I allowed to read it? Ms. Taylor, you're supposed to read it and let it refresh your recollection, and then not read it, but just tell me a summary of where it was. Okay. The entire leather portion of the strap, both top and bottom, and then the underside of the button. See, that's interesting. That doesn't sound like there's blood all over it, because how could you do that? I misspoke. She did not swab the top of the button. See, I told you guys. I told you it was the underside of the button. Look at that, man. On this show here, we are even ahead of what they're doing in here. You get that? Look at earlier I said it was the underside of the button, and then she said I misspoke. She did not swab the top of the button because that was determined to be the most likely place for fingerprints to be found. The underside of the button, was it the part that that sticky out part would go into, or the sticky out part? Sticky out part? I can't tell from this. I would have to look at her notes. Okay, good enough. Thank you. A couple of follow-up questions for you. You answered a lot of questions for me, Nye, about a medical information, and that your lab does not do testing for medical information. Is that because you do... Hold on a second. Is that because you do STR or YSTR testing, not SNP testing? Correct. Our laboratory performs both STR and YSTRs, and those don't yield medical information. The MOU that you reviewed and remembered, the Department of Justice interim policy applied to the circumstance in this case. Do you know who else the interim policy applies to? Based on what is stated in the interim policy, it applies to public laboratories like ours that receive federal funding and cases where federal funding is being used. By the way, you know when I do my videos, that's how I do it. Like let me show you what I do when I'm doing it. I'll be going like this. Watch. Based on what is stated in the interim policy, it applies to public laboratories like ours that receive federal funding and cases where federal... Then I'll go, oh shit. And then I'll go like this. Like ours that receive federal funding and cases where federal funding is being used. And then when I edit it, I find where I go like this, and then I move that shit out and put that part back in. I mean, usually I can read, long blocks of information. And sometimes I'll say the wrong thing, and I go, oh shit, and I have to, like after the fact, I'll just record me saying the right word and then slide that little piece in there. The sticky out part. Boy, that's high-tech stuff there, isn't it? All right, and I'll say thanks to Lisa on Venmo there. And also we've got PayPal Mark and Maureen. And then we've got Coffees, Ocean 42, Susie, and Plato. I haven't seen Plato in the chat tonight. All right, anyways. To my knowledge, I don't know if we did use federal funding in this case. Do you recall talking to me a couple days ago? Yes. And do you recall telling me that you did? I do recall telling you that we had a grant in place, but again, I authorized payment of the invoice, but which fund the funds come out of, I don't know, and I apologize if I misspoke. And are you aware that the FBI FIGG unit, I guess, took over and the FBI finished the genetic genealogy after Othram was stopped? I'm aware we were authorized to turn it over, but as to what happened after that, I don't know. Okay, one more question for you. You talked to Mr. Nye a bit about not comparing the sample 95.9.1 to the sheath DNA, and I had asked you a little bit about your policy that allowed you to do the hand search, the manual search on that. Your policy does allow you to do a comparison like it's either excluded or not excluded, though. Is that right? Am I looking at policy 4.5.6? No. We can report an exclusion. They aren't from the same source, but in order to say they are from the same source, considering they are from completely different areas, no, we would have to provide a statistic, and we can't do that. But you could have looked at it and said it's not excluded. That would be an indication that it's possible, and we would have to provide a statistic for that. And we have, so our biology section, you may look at our analytical methods biological section has their own quality manual that further discusses this. Your Honor, if I can have her shown this document to see if we can refresh her memory. For the record, identify what you're showing her. What I'm showing her are a couple of pages out of the biology manual for the Idaho State Police Forensic Lab that is available online. So, Miss Nolan, if you'll look at the very bottom one, that's the one I'm having trouble squaring with your testimony. If that refreshes your recollection or helps me understand, or helps me, I don't even know what she's saying. So what this is talking about is that it may be beneficial to make a qualitative statement about evidence to evidence comparisons. However, there is another section of our biology quality manual that specifically states if it's a probative comparison, a statistic must be provided. Right. But that is. But what this is saying? So, for instance, if you're in one room in a scene and there's multiple swabs that are tested, we can say these are consistent or these appear to be from the same unknown individual. Now, if I'm going to say these are from John Doe, you know what's interesting though? Like you could have the same profile and the statistics are different. And we saw that in the Rex Huerman case. And it just means that like maybe they didn't find the whole profile, but they found, because it seems like it would be exactly the same, right? Like shouldn't you have the same mathematical equation with the same sequence? But I think what it is sometimes you don't find the entire sequence, you just find, you know, maybe there's 15 of the 20 markers or something, and then that makes a different number. She will seem really smart by it. No, she won't. She won't, Tracy. Hey, Tracy Jones, let me just tell you something. Brian Kohberger is the killer. He's 100% the killer. There is no doubt that he's a killer. You'll be embarrassed at trial. He'll be found guilty, but you'll claim he was innocent even after he was found guilty. I will bet money that you'll do that. That even after he's found guilty, you'll say they got to the jury, didn't they? Right? I don't know. I'm just goofing around. I don't know what you're going to say. Let's see. Smell a pro burger. Yeah. Because I don't want to. Yeah, well, I wouldn't want her to call in. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And there's no number on the screen to call in. You get what I'm saying? Like, why would I have somebody call in that's just, you know, it's weird. Let's see. But what this is saying, so for instance, if you're in one room in a scene and there's multiple swabs that are tested, we can say these are consistent or these appear to be from the same unknown individual. Now, if I'm going to say these are from John Doe, I have to provide a statistic for each item and do a comparison for each item. Right. So if you already have so-and-so's DNA and you know who it is, then you can say, yeah, it appears to be consistent. But if you don't know who it is, then you have to have statistics. Did I hear you say you could compare if they're probative? If it's, which that wouldn't be, in my mind, a probative comparison. We have multiple items of evidence in the same room in a scene. We can say they appear to be consistent with the same unknown individual. That's not making any statement about who that individual might be. If I'm making a statement about who might be the source of that, then that is a probative comparison, and I need to provide a statistic. Before you make the comparison, where maybe you write exclusion, you don't know if it's excluded or included, though. Is that right? I'm sorry, could you? Yeah, I didn't even know what that. Yeah, it's like, what does that even mean? Could you repeat that? Yeah. Let me try to explain what I'm getting at. I'm not understanding why 95.9.1 couldn't have been manually looked at to do a manual comparison to the sheath. That's because it was unknown. Just to say, she already explained it to you. Just to say excluded or not. When male E was compared to multiple items of evidence, and it was excluded. But you don't know that until you do the comparison. Is that right? Correct. So you can look at it manually. If we're now making a probative statement, then we need to provide a statistic. And male E was also a single source, which is different than a mixture of DNA from multiple people. All right. I don't think I have any other questions. Thank you. Maybe I can take those pages from you, back from you. Thank you. You can call your next witness. All right, so I think I'm just going to stop there. We'll start tomorrow on Matthew Gamet. But we got to page 84. I just, my brain is starting to trip out. Yeah. So what's going on, everybody? Who knows, Cindy? Don't worry about it. Man, Jesus. It's just, you always have some kind of a follow-up or some kind of... Why do these people love... He's probably some, another genealogy person, I don't know. What time is it? We've been on here... Well, it's only been 2 hours. Do you want to do one of those... Yeah, well, just think it to yourself, or look it up, We could try that one of the that 1986 case if you want. You guys want to look at that one? An old school type. There. Let's see, where is it? I'll look it up for you. It'll say who he is. Matthew, do you solemnly swear? Blah 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 blah. Matthew Gamet. Good morning. Who are you? How are you employed? I'm employed with the Idaho State Police Forensic Services, and I'm a laboratory system director. What does that mean to be laboratory system director? I oversee operations at the laboratory system. I oversee anything from purchasing, procurement, contracts, human resources, etc. Okay, you got it? There you go, Cindy. I did it. There goes my stomach. Okay, so this person's name is Carrie Weldigen. There isn't really like a ton of articles on it. It's weird how it just kind of disappeared out of the news back then. Yeah, right there. Did you get that, Cindy? Just for you, just for you. Body of young woman found in Davie, Florida. Davie police are investigating the stabbing death of a young woman whose body was found Monday in a canal in Davie. Police said a resident of a neighborhood near Southwest 121st Avenue and 36th Court found the fully clothed body of the woman. Now let me go over here. I actually have this oh man, it's got to move these up here. Hold on. Okay. Body found. So what was the address they were giving in there? Police said a resident of a neighborhood near Southwest 121st and 36th Court. So there's 36th Court, and this is Southwest 121st. So she was found in a, you can see it right there. There's water right here, and I don't know if the street view, there should be street view here, but earlier when I went down there, it didn't connect to it. You know what we could do though, is I bet you, if we just went like that and went over to Google Maps, that their version, it would work. So let's see, right there, and come on, you guys. Ah, jeez, even that one's, what's going on with Google Maps? What happens if I go right there? Okay, so if we go down here and take a left, yeah, look at that. Ooh, Jesus, that look that. I mean that. Oh, wow. So Google Earth actually drove on that in one of their shots, but apparently in there is where she was found. Isn't that crazy? Jeez. See, because they wouldn't have it in here like this. See, you can see that blue line. That's usually what it means when it's got Google Maps, but. And don't forget to help support the channel even during these types of cases, you guys. We hit one of those lulls again. Trying to make up for some of those other nights we had. I mean, it wasn't even just a loss, it was a blowout. Yeah, so anyways, right there. Just lost the newspaper article, so I'll load that one back up again. She was found, the fully clothed body of the woman between 16 and 21 years old at about 8:15 a.m. The woman had been described as about 5 feet 3 inches tall, with brown shoulder-length hair. She was wearing a white dress and black zipper jacket, Davie police said. A spokesman for the Broward Medical Examiner's Office said the woman died of multiple stab wounds. Police refused to provide further details. And then we go here, and that's her right here. When Carrie Weldgen, or Welgen maybe, failed to return home Friday night after going to a local pizzeria with some friends, her parents didn't worry. They figured she was with a friend, which is exactly what they were told by one of Carrie's friends. You know how girls are. They'll try to cover up for each other, said her father, Leo Welgen. It wasn't until Wednesday that they learned the truth. Their daughter was dead. Police identified the body of a young woman found stabbed and floating in a West Davie canal as that of Welgen, 17, who lived with her parents about 3 miles from the canal. Fingerprints from the body were matched with others found in Welgen's home in the Kings Manor Estate mobile home park. Yes, I think I found she lives right here. Or let's see, where is that? I think it's right in here. I think this is the specific unit if I got it right. And it's 491, so let's see if that turns out to be. So fingerprints from the body were matched with others found in Welgen's home in the Kings Manor Estates mobile home park in the unincorporated area just south of State Road 84 and west of Flamingo Road in the 12,600 block of Southwest 6th Street. Now, multiple stab wounds caused the death of the teenager, who may have been in the canal for a couple of days before a citrus worker discovered her body Monday morning. The citrus worker saw a body floating face down in a canal at Southwest 121st Avenue and 36th Court, about 3 miles south of her home, Davie Detective James Ewing said. Police would not say whether any suspects have been identified in the killing. Carrie, a former Western high school student who dropped out this year in her sophomore year, a student who dropped out this year in her sophomore year, worked full-time at McDonald's restaurant on State Road 84 and Southwest 130th. Right, so she lived there, and then she worked at, I think it's, which one did I pick? I think it's this one. See, this is 130th is right here. So I'm pretty sure that was the McDonald's, but then there's another one that I think could have been a McDonald's at the same time. So, let's see, they said it McDonald's restaurant on State Road 84 at Southwest 130th Avenue. Let's see. Jesus. Man. Davie, Florida. Alright, so that's 130th, and if you follow that up, it does go, it's way closer to that one. That's a McDonald's right there. And I think she just lived right here, so, you know, it's a pretty quick little walk there. Less than a mile from her home. I don't think she had any enemies, her father said. She had more friends than most people around here. She was last seen around 5 p.m. Friday when she left home to go to dinner with some girlfriends at Enrico's Pizzeria. Okay, here we go. At 979 State Road 84. 979 State Road 84. Oh, so it's over here. Interesting. So that's where the pizzeria was, in this mall here. And it's called Enrico's Pizzeria. Right there. And what happens if we go into there? Can you still see the pizzeria? Let's see. Looks like it's a barber shop now or something. You guys even still here? Yep, dead as a doornail. Second you cover something else. Hey, thanks, K-Me. There we go. Somebody. Okay, then, so pizzeria at 979 State Road 84, about 2.5 miles east of her home, said her father. On Saturday, when Carrie didn't call or return home, her parents started to call her friends on Sunday. One of Carrie's friends told the Welgens she knew where Carrie was. But late Monday, the Welgens discovered that the girlfriend had invented the story to protect Carrie, her father said. Well, who was she with that you needed to protect, you know? Welgens' parents did not notify police that Carrie was missing until Tuesday. That friend, I think, might know an answer to a question. Why would you be protecting her unless you sort of knew that she said she was going to be doing something with somebody, right? I mean, that's sort of interesting. Hey, thanks, Florence White, for gifting a membership. Hey, look at Alan McMahon won a membership. That's pretty funny. And then, let's see, Trina Dickerson got one. Yeah. But late Monday, the Welgens discovered that the girlfriend had invented the story. We gave her a little bit of running room, but she was usually very good about letting us know where she was, said Welgen. All right. There's actually just one more on this. After that, it just disappeared. So it says, Carrie Welgen, 17, went out for pizza with friends in West Broward Friday night. She didn't come home, but her parents weren't concerned. She often stayed overnight with girlfriends. Leo and Loretta Welgen began to worry when the teenager didn't show up for work the next day and didn't call home. Their worst fears proved warranted Wednesday when police identified the body of a young woman found stabbed and floating in a Davie Canal earlier this week as their daughter. Welgen of... Okay, there's the exact address right there. Hold on. I think we already had that. So it was 12601 Southwest 6th, and then I think it was West Broward. Alright, so we're going over here, and so it's right there. That's where they're saying it is, right here. I think that's the other case, actually, this one. I mean, that's what's so strange. Everything is right next to each other. So let me put this right here. This one actually makes sense. And that's 12601 Southwest 6th Street. Alright. Very cool. Got that. Unincorporated West Broward died of multiple stab wounds, according to Broward Medical Examiner's Office. Police said the girl had been dead between 24 and 48 hours when her body was found Monday morning in the canal near Southwest 121st Avenue and 36th Court in Davie. She went out with friends that night and never came home. So, I mean, whatever her friends say, though, said Miss Welgen. They stayed over at girlfriends' homes before. I never worried until she didn't show up for work. Welgen, who dropped out of Western High School in the middle of last fall term, was scheduled to work work Saturday at McDonald's at 13200 State Road 84. All right, let me type that in. 13200. And I think it might even be the other one, but let's see. 13200 State Road 84. So that's where she lived, and she just had to go. Yeah, so it's this one right here. Okay, so she just would go to McDonald's over here, but then where she went to the pizzeria was right down here. See, so she worked really close to home, but then apparently went to the pizzeria. But it sounds like she was. That's Welgen of 12601 Southwest 6th Street, West Broward, died of multiple stab wounds. And then down here it says Welgen, who dropped out of Western High School in middle of last fall term, was scheduled to work Saturday at McDonald's at 13200 State Road 84, And so she was just supposed to work there the next day. Maybe it's so she was supposed to work Saturday, so maybe went out Friday night. And when she failed to show up for her shift, a McDonald's employee called the Welgens to check on her, said her mother, Loretta Welgen. You guys can't see what I'm reading. Miss Welgen said she asked the employee to call again if Carrie didn't show up. She assumed her daughter made it to work when no one from the restaurant called again, she said. By Sunday, Miss Welgen said she began to phone some of Carrie's friends. I started calling around to everybody she could have been with, Miss Welgen said. There was no sign. Miss Welgen said she received a call on Sunday that her daughter was being held at the Pompano Beach Detention Center facility for adults. She and her husband Leo drove to Pompano Beach, but were told that no one by that name, Carrie Welgen, had been detained there. She said. Sergeant Natalie Bush, an officer at the center, confirmed that the center had no record of Carrie Welgen. A check with other facilities in the area shows no record of Welgen being arrested. When the Welgens reported their daughter missing on Tuesday, Davie police went to the home to take fingerprints from Carrie's room. They confirmed Wednesday that the body found in the canal was that of Carrie Welgen. Davie Police Detective Jin Ewing said he was told that Welgen had planned to meet some friends at a pizza restaurant Friday night. He said the girl described by the mother as a very... did she make it to the pizza place? Very introverted. Appeared at... Oh, so she did. Okay, let's see. He said the girl described by her mother as very introverted appeared at the restaurant, but he wouldn't say whether she left with anyone. There's lots of things to run down, he said. He would not comment further. And you know what's crazy, you guys? That's the last article that there was. I mean, my God, really? You didn't keep digging around? So this is March 22nd, 1985. But then the other case that I want to do a bigger, look into is this one. I'm just going to try to find one particular. Yeah, this one right here. So this is Linda Callatan. Okay, another victim. So, I mean, look what she looks like. Isn't that pretty similar, too? I mean, just looking at that right here. And then over here, it does mention, it says, following that theory, Vernon and Riley have questioned Broward Community College students who were in art classes with Linda Callatan, regular passengers on bus routes. It's, and here's what's crazy is that Linda Callatan, she lives right here in the same damn, hold on. Jeez, not sure what happened there. In the same area. I mean, she lives right here. So this is where Carrie Welgen lives, right there. And this is where, out of this whole city, and this is a year later, you have this girl lives here, and, there's McDonald's there, and I think her body was found right up here in a canal. And then this is where Welgen was found, in a canal here. So both found in a canal, but both live right next to each other. So, but up in this article, it does mention, it says, the detectives have investigated suspects in similar crimes committed in Broward County and compared similar unsolved cases. One of those cases was that of Carrie Welgen, a 17-year-old whose body was found a year earlier in a canal along State Road 84, less than a mile from the spot where Linda was abducted. Weldon lived in a mobile home park just south of the Callatans. She often walked or hitchhiked along State Road 84 and worked at McDonald's near the entrance to the Western Hills Estates Park. Vernon said the case is notable because of the similarities and the fact that Linda Callatan was murdered within a few weeks of 1-year anniversary of the Weldon case. It fits what crime experts call an anniversary reaction. Right, I actually looked at that. I saw that. I thought, wow, I wonder if this killer kills around the same time of year. But anyways, I think we'll take a look at that one. What the weird thing is they're associating this killer with a killer of another girl, a young, like an 8-year-old girl that was killed. And her body was also found right up here near where Linda's body was found. But the person who killed the 8-year-old, that's what they're into. So why would they have killed Linda, who was 29 years old? Linda Calatan. Doesn't make any sense. I actually think Linda's killer and Carrie's killer are the same person. That's what I think. I think those are, I mean, the fact that they live that close to each other, there's got to be a predator right in the area. Kind of similar stories even. You know? So anyways, the other one's more complex, has a hell of a lot more writing on it. So maybe we'll go over that tomorrow. We'll just start over again or something. Maybe, I don't know if it'll be tomorrow, or maybe we'll just do a show that's like earlier in the day or something. Because it takes like the whole show to read this transcript. But anyways, I think that's going to do it for me, guys. I think that was like our record number of memberships, 43 memberships. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. So thanks, K-Me. My Father's Alibi came in here. Thanks for everybody for writing letters for her. Check out that community post that I made. If you could write a letter to the prosecutor in that case, that'd be great. Wise Child with a cat eye donation. Cinnamonson Freak. Vaughn Dawson. Mike Tweet. Gypsy Jody both of them became new members on their own. Then Sandy Shirley gifted 5. Then Allie Cake gifted 1. Michelle Perkins gifted 1. Then Uniquely Susie Retired Hospice RN gifted a membership. Welcome Jerry Walker. And let's see. Then we have Toka Charlie gifted a membership. Then Nikki Zubs. Grit. She gifted 1. And then Grit Sass became a new member. Then Moxie Drapo. GSU PM, and then everybody was trying to get her a membership again, and it just didn't happen. Allie Cake, Jessica Miller gifted a membership. Moofies, Florence White, Sirius Black, Great Dane Mom, then Ann Davis gifted a membership, then K-Me, then Gypsy Jody, then Allie Cake, then Moofies, then Tumbleweed, then Florence White, then Wise Child, Uniquely. These are all gifted memberships. Uniquely Susie Retired Hospice RN, then Deborah Tureau, and then I said if you guys did 10 of them, I would do one. Or 10, I'd do 5 of them. Then Florence White, then I gifted 5 memberships. Then Jay Case came in, and he gifted 10.
Donation night?
Which is pretty amazing. Nope, it's not donation night. It's just another one of those good nights that we have that makes up for the ones where we have like 10 people. I always wonder if Pigar is, what Pigar is up to, you know. But no, yeah, it wasn't even close to that. But hey, better than we've had, for sure. So then we had J-Case, then Tumbleweed, and GSU PM with a cat eye donation. And then K-Me, then Florence White, and then Jerry Walker, and then Pigar with his sarcastic comments that he always makes. Never anything really kind. Let's see, what do we got? We got that, and then in the... Again, we have Mark Ferris and Maureen on PayPals. Then we have Plato, Susie, and Ocean 42 on the coffees. And then also Venmo from Lisa E. There you go. Yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much for your support. Last, couple weeks or last 10 days or so, it's kind of helped us, almost get back on track. I think a lot of times it's the cases that you're covering. I think, when we I don't know when the trial's not going to happen for a long time, but I think the hearings are interesting. It's kind of cool hearing little pieces of information in these documents that are like, you know, stuff that we didn't know. I mean, it sounded like what they said was there was a little bit of blood on that knife sheath. Although that doesn't make sense if they sat there and swabbed the whole knife sheath. So I don't know if that's what she was saying or not. It's hard to make out. Could have been, though. But anyways, hey, let's do the spin for the notebook. All right. So here we go. I'm going to get the wheel of names up here. That was yesterday. There's the new one. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Who's going to win it? Who's going to win? It's going to be GSU PM. Watch. Oh, there's JK's. Oh, it just skipped over that. Wise Child. There you go. Wise Child. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to do another one for you guys. Here we go. We'll give out 2 of them. Why not? And there it is. Moxie Drapo. There you go. So those are the 2 winners. If you send me your address, I will ship off the notebooks. I still have a batch that I'm doing. I like to get like 10 or 11 or, you know, something like that to send out. So there you go. Very cool. And thank you guys all for being here. Really awesome. I don't know why. I always find those cold cases really interesting, especially when the newspapers, they always put a lot of information. The other case is a hell of a lot more information. And I think what we'll do is we'll just go over that last article on this one here. Oh, look at that. Alan McMahon just gifted 5 memberships. She still didn't get one. Hey, thanks, Alan. That was very kind, very kind. I'll put you in for the spin tomorrow. There you go, there you go. Let's see. GSU PM, you still didn't get one. But welcome to Jenny's Mixed Media Journals, LJB, Caroline, PJ Second Chance, Mickey TX. Awesome. Unbelievable. Anyways. All right, everybody. Thank you all for being here tonight. You know, I've been putting out different videos on the Kohberger case. The last 2 didn't really do very well. They weren't conspiratorial sounding enough on the title. I think that would have got more views. I should say, like the UK guy, it's always like, what is it? What's that word that they always say? Like, shocking new information. What is it? What is it? Oh, well, they found a toothbrush in the bathroom, but there was no DNA on it, so they were just... Well, what's the shocking part? What is it? Oh, there wasn't anything. I just wanted people to click on my video. Yeah, he's terrible. He's so disingenuous, you guys. One of the most fake people that there ever was I've ever seen on the entire. But you know, he'll sell every day. He sells a different version of what could have happened. But of course, he's just spitballing. So that's his way out. So when it's all said and done, and Kohberger's found guilty and gets the death penalty, he'll say, "Yeah, well, I always thought it could have been." You know, forget it, man. Like, every day that guy tries to sell how he's innocent. You know. All right, you guys. Thank you for being here. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Appreciate it. And that's all I got. All right. So again, thanks for being here. We'll see you tomorrow. And as I always say, until next time, be safe out there. And a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4.
Yeah, I've been doing this true crime thing for quite a while now. And during this whole time, I have not seen one person That is
Not even one grade.
crime dissector.
Fuck rejector, I'm a certified, I'm a solid.
detector.
I'm just spitballing.
On a stretcher. If you try
I don't have a clue what I'm saying.
Crime sector.
I'm just spitballing. Please come in.
Gonna give another lecture. Crime collector. Freak connector.
You beautiful, beautiful people.
Protector. Fool
Deflector, interceptor, Calamino the inspector with a vector on his pector with all his vector.
Just remember I've a temple fucking
Injection, I have no agenda, I never tender, and I'll serve it to you straight without a blender. And in the end, I will send you
on a mission to reveal the true offender. Yeah, so I'll just get right back to work. All right, everybody? Talk to you later.
Well, it doesn't really matter, Mike, does it? It's on the underside of the snap. All right, guys, thank you. I think you just missed cleaning that spot. See you guys tomorrow. And be safe out there.